Hey, welcome back to That 70s Card Show. My name is John Keating, and I thank you for joining me as I take a look back at the cards and the culture of the very colorful 1970s. We'll revisit a more simple time in our hobby by taking a deep dive into the sets and the stats with a generous amount of dad facts sprinkled in. That 70s Card Show is currently sponsored by nobody. If you have a comment or suggestion, I urge you to drop me a line at ThatSeventiesCardShow at gmail.com. 70s Card on Twitter, or that 70s Card Show on YouTube. This is episode 69, and it's Thanksgiving. Everybody, happy Thanksgiving to all. My house, every year around this time, we'd adopt a fellow named Thom. Of course, Thom is a male turkey, and we would go at it with the turkey. Thom would only stay with us for a brief time. Sometimes we'd have Thanksgiving at our house. Sometimes we'd get together with some of our drunk uncles and aunts and cousins and all that stuff, stone cousins perhaps, have a good time, have a bunch of laughs, all that stuff. Thom is an interesting name, as we know. He can be a Tom, a Thomas, a Tommy, or I have a colleague that goes by the THOM moniker. We call him Thom or T-Hom. So there's all that stuff. Just to warn everybody, it is Thanksgiving. Black Friday is tomorrow. And we all know what happened there. According to Steely Dan, it wasn't very pleasant. And it's the height and the beginnings, I guess, but they come out of the gate, these drunk uncles. So just be careful. Thanksgiving is their day one of party season that lasts up until, I would say, January 1st, perhaps January 2nd. So beware of the drunk uncles, all that fun stuff. The hobby is awesome, as we know. I'm thankful that I can participate in the hobby, and I've met so many wonderful people, and so many people have been kind to me in my little journey after my deep sleep. I enjoy collecting. It never ends. I'm a grower, not a shower, so that means I collect a lot of stuff. And as I say, I grow horizontally more than vertically, so my collection gets bigger by the day, more diverse, whether that's different sports, different players, all that stuff. So I was trying to explain to my brother last night. I have a house full of people, by the way, which is awesome. Both my sons are home. My brother and his wife are here. We're all going to get a caravan over to my other brother's house later today. But I was explaining to my brother Joseph that, he was asking about how I sort my cards, and he was saying, can you do it? Do you do it by player? And no, I'm a number guy. Every card, or most cards, have a number assigned to them. So that's how I go. I don't go by teams. I don't go by players. So it's easy to add on that way. There are tens of thousands of baseball players, hockey players, basketball players, and football players. So if I did it by player, I'd probably be suicidal right now. So anyway, I enjoy my collecting, as most of you do. I enjoy my friends. I enjoy my family. So it's neat when it all kind of merges like that. So we're going to talk about a couple Thoms here. I picked out 3 Thoms from the 70s, and they're not the greatest Thoms. They're not the worst Thoms, but they're just Thoms. Before we start that, we should probably talk about our friends over there at Baseball Reference, because they give us a lot of information. Wikipedia gives me a lot of information. Be careful. Just a warning here. There will be some recitation from Wikipedia and Baseball Reference. So if you're not up for that, please cover your ears, your eyes, and your mouth, perhaps, and don't at me at all. First guy we're going to talk about here is a gentleman named Norman Turkey Stearns. Of course, we have to talk about Turkey Stearns. Turkey Stearns was a Negro League player, of course, born in 1901, died in 1979 at the age of 78 years, 119 days. one of those guys that just never made it to the majors for obvious reasons. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in the year 2000 by the Veterans Committee, and quite a ball player. His stats on Baseball Reference show him, obviously they're incomplete stats, but he played from 23 to 1940. So 1923 to 1940 is 18 years if you do the math. Says he collected 1,319 hits in less than 1,000 games. So if you look at his, and I like to do this frequently, the 162 game average, which doesn't quite make sense in context of the times because they didn't play 162 games, but it's a nice barometer to measure current players. So if you look at his 162 game average, it'll tell you that he was a 349 hitter, and he would have averaged 217 hits, 31 home runs, and 164 RBIs during a 162 game season. Now, obviously, that's all hyperbole. We don't know the competition he was playing against and stuff like that. But if you look at his 1925 season, 136 hits, 19 home runs in 94 games, and 126 RBIs in that period too. So the guy could play, and there were some great players in that league. So Turkey Stearns, first card out there of him seems to be the 1978 Laughlin Long Ago Black Stars. It's a nice color. It's mint green with a black border. It says Long Ago at the top with a star and a couple baseballs for the O's. Turkey Stearns wearing a Chicago uniform, and it says Black Stars across the bottom. Now, the teams he played for, kind of tough for me to figure that out, but I'll do my best. He played for the Monarchs, of course, but he also played for the Detroit Stars. He played for the Chicago American Giants. He played for the Philadelphia Stars, and finishing his career in the 1940 season with the Kansas City Monarchs, of course. So that's Turkey Stearns, and we're going to get into a little deeper stuff here. One guy I want to highlight here is a gentleman who in the 70s was almost a mythical figure for several reasons. His name is Thom Dempsey, and Thom Dempsey, of course, was a place kicker for the Chargers. I think he was on the practice squad for the Chargers, then the Saints, then the Philadelphia Eagles, Los Angeles Rams, Houston Oilers, and then finished out with the Buffalo Bills in the late 70s. Thom Dempsey was an all-pro kicker in 1969. Incidentally, I believe that was his rookie year. Pro Bowler, George Halas Award winner in 71, and he's in the New Orleans Saints Hall of Fame. He was born January 12th, 1947. He passed away April 4th, 2020. He was one of those early COVID victims, unfortunately. Big guy. I don't know if you'd find a bigger kicker there. He was 6'2", 255 pounds, went to Palomar College, and was undrafted in 1968. Obviously, he is a legend, and we'll read about that here in a second here. So he made that what was that? In 1970, he made a 63-yard field goal. That's crazy. I'm going to read here from the Wikipedia. So again, hide your kids, hide your wife if you have to. Dempsey is widely known for kicking a 63-year-old, dear God, what is my problem? A 63-yard field goal as time expired to give the Saints a 19-17 win over the Detroit Lions on November 8th, 1970 in Tulane Stadium in the city of New Orleans. So keep in mind there, prior to 1974, the goalposts were at the goal lines instead of the end lines. So with time running out in the game, the Saints attempted a field goal with holder Joe Scarpati spotting at the Saints' own 37-yard line. So think about that. There's teams that routinely kick field goals now from their opponent's 37-yard line. These guys were kicking from their very own 37-yard line. So the snap from Jackie Burkett was good, and Dempsey made the field goal as the ball fell just beyond the bar. The win was one of only 2 for the Saints in that dismal season. So imagine sticking around for the Saints-Lions nail biter there at the end and being rewarded with that field goal. So with that kick, Dempsey broke Burt Recker's NFL record for the longest field goal by 7 yards. It wasn't even close, was it? The second, his record was tied 3 times by Jason Elam in 98, Sebastian Janikowski in 2011, and David Akers in 2012, before it was broken on December 8th, 2013 by Matt Prater, who hit a 64-yard field goal. Justin Tucker in September of 2021 broke that record with a 66-yarder as time expired to beat the Detroit Lions, of course. The woeful Detroit Lions have had that record hung on them twice. So that was recorded as the longest walk-off as well by our friend there, Justin Tucker, who is probably going into the Hall of Fame. I think we can all agree on that. So keep in mind there, folks, that one record that'll never be broken is the fact that that ball was spotted within the 40-yard line of the Saints. So that'll never happen again. I think we can all agree on that. So Tom Dempsey rule was enacted so that a shoe that is worn by a player with an artificial limb on his kicking leg must have a kicking surface that conforms with a normal kicking shoe. Tom Dempsey was born without right toes and fingers on his right hand. So no toes on his right foot, no fingers on his right hand. He wore that modified shoe with a flattened and a large toe surface. The custom-made shoe, it says, was $200, which is equivalent to $1,396 in today's currency, crypto or hard cash. And they say it gave him an unfair advantage. Now, ESPN apparently tried to do a science experiment on here and says that it was not an unfair advantage. It was the opposite because it was more difficult to control. But as we know, if you're more concentrated on power in a specific point, you'll probably get some more, as they say, thrust. But either way, it was quite the feat. So I think we call that a scratch, control versus power. Difficult to harness both of them. Let's see here. In 83, Dempsey was inducted in the American Football Association Semi-Pro Football Hall of Fame. I have no idea. His Hurricane Katrina wiped out his memorabilia stash, but it could not flood out his memories. So he stayed he retired in New Orleans, and he passed away again there in 2020. Talk a little bit about his setup here. Let me see here. Tom Dempsey again wore number 19 for the Saints and the Eagles, 10 for the Rams, 23 for the Oilers, and 6 for the Buffalo Bills. He was a one-time Pro Bowler, as we say, in his rookie year in 1969. He had the longest field goal in 1969 with 55, the longest, of course, in 70 with 63, and the longest in 71 with 54. So these guys weren't really chugging the ball through the uprights with regularity back then, but he was able to do that. 3 straight years he was able to lead longest field goal. 71 for the Eagles, probably his best year there. Again, a 54-yard field goal, longest in the season, but he was a 70.6 field goal percentage guy. So quite the season back then for Tom Dempsey. Let's talk a little bit about his cards here. He's got quite a few cards. If you want to look at that, he's got that 1970 depicted proudly wearing his number 19, and he is well into drunk uncle territory with these cards. 71, 72, beautiful cards. I think football designers at Topps, probably the same as the baseball designers, but they were much better at pumping out football cards than baseball cards probably back then. So 73, I think we call 1973, shows him in his Philadelphia Eagles glory, wearing full uniform, half of a foot, and number 19 again on those green and white Eagles uniforms. He's kicking the ball somewhere. He's happy. He's, of course, 6'2", 255 pounds, and it shows. Then we move into the territory where this is the rare beast that is morphed from a drunk uncle into a stoned cousin or straight up Hell's Angel. He goes Fu Manchu handlebars, whatever you want to call them, ape hangers, inverted ape hangers hanging from his upper lip. Again, depicted with the Eagles in 74, the Rams in 75. There's a nice record holders card for Tom Dempsey. I guess in the 5th anniversary of his NFL record field goal there. And then 76, we finish out with the Rams as well. So nice little run of cards there by Tom Dempsey. You get to see the full diversity of the not only Tom's appearance, the drunk uncle, stoned cousin. He's got a little Lenny and Squiggy thing going there in his 1971 card. And hanging down over his forehead there. You would call that a peninsula, I guess, of hair dripping down his forehead. But then he embraces the 70s fully and goes mop top, inverted ape hanger, mustache. And he looks like just a stone cold badass there, if I don't mind working blue, as they say in the comedy field. So that's Tom Dempsey. Obviously made an imprint on the NFL scene with that long field goal, and as well as his disability of not having toes on his right foot or fingers on his right hand. So quite a pioneer and quite an athlete for a guy that was that big. This guy would kick the ball hard, kick the ball far, and embrace the culture wherever he went. So next chap we're going to talk about is someone nearer and dearer to my heart, and his name is Tom Keating. Okay, I'm going to throw his cards up onto the screen there just so we can see. Tom Keating is not related to me, although in at least one of his cards he looks exactly like my father. But let's talk about Tom Keating, if you don't mind. He was an American football player who played defensive tackle, played college football at Michigan, so he was a Wolverine, and apparently the Wolverines sucked back then, 1961 to 1963. Played 12 seasons of professional football in the AFL and the NFL from 64 to 75. AFL All-Star in 66 and 67, and a key to the 67 Oakland Raiders defensive line that led the team to a 13-1 record in the 1967 AFL Championship, and was considered the premier tackle in the old American Football League. He was known for his use of the distinctive 4-point stance in which he lined up with both hands on the ground. That's kind of a lost art. You see it every now and then, but it was kind of brought back, I guess, a few years ago. One of the defenses the Eagles played, everybody would do a 4-point stance for whatever reason. So Tom Keating was born in Chicago in 42. Again, Michigan, 2-7 record in 62, and then a 3-4-2 record in 63. 5th place in the Big Ten Conference. He was drafted by the Bills in the 5th round, the 64 draft. He was the 34th overall pick. So 5th rounder, 34th overall pick. Spent 65 seasons as a backup and for the Bills, and appearing in 3 games in 64 and 6 games in 65. Joined the Oakland Raiders in 1966, earned all AFL All-Star honors, as we said, in 66 and 67, and was the starter again on that AFL championship team. It was a victory over the Houston Oilers, as well as he started in Super Bowl II against the Green Bay Packers. Quite a player back then, and the old put your both hands down in the dirt, as they would say. He was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1973 for an undisclosed draft pick, and he appeared in 12 games, starting 4 for the 1973 Pittsburgh Steelers. Then he signed with the Kansas City Chiefs in 74, became a starter for the Chiefs, appearing in all 14 games, including 12 as the team's starting left tackle. And he concluded his football career appearing in 9 games 4 as a starter. Now, unfortunately, Thom Keating would pass away in 2012 from the cancer, and he was diagnosed, or post-mortem showed that he had chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So he had the CTE upside the head, as most players from that era, I guess, would have had. But after retiring from football, he went into the Keating line of business. Many Keatings in the 70s were private investigators, and he worked for a law firm and later opened his own investigative agency in California. So yeah, he would retire in California, and oddly enough, he had a house in the south of France as well. So he was quite a Renaissance man. Again, he passed away August 31st, 2012, of the cancer, and quite a. There's no controversy here. He is by far the greatest professional Keating athlete that ever was. Played 114 games, 44 and a half sacks he had for his career, which is pretty darn good. He missed the 68 season for my birth. Actually, no, I'm sorry. He missed the 68 season because of an injured leg. So I'd like to think it was because of my birth, but that wasn't the case. 69, he came roaring back with 12 sacks in 14 games. So he was quite a hammer there on the defensive line. I've put on here a couple of his cards. A couple of them don't pertain to the 70s, but he had a nice 1965 card with the Buffalo Bills. Beautiful card, pink background. He is in a 3-point stance, and he looks like he's going to punch you with his left hand because he wants that hand in the dirt, but the photographer probably didn't allow that. Clearly states that Thom Keating is a defensive tackle. And moving on to 1968, which I think is an awesome card. Oakland Raiders. He is, I think he's playing patty cake with whomever is the card holder. And there's a nice shot of him in his uniform, and then there's an action shot in the background. I think it's a beautiful card, that 68. Then we move on to 1970, and that 1970 card is the one that looks exactly like my father. Scary stuff. I was young back then, so perhaps it could have been my father. I just don't know that, but he looks like him, wearing the white Oakland Raiders uniform with the black lettering. 1970, probably 1970 football is probably one of the greatest Topps card sets ever, I believe. And then we moved on to 72, since he only had 3 Topps cards, and one of them being from the 70s. In 1970, I included the 72 Sunoco stamp set there. He's got a nice profile action shot of him, perhaps in mid-huddle, and 74 Keating, defensive tackle, Oakland Raiders. So that's that. I know we're getting to the meat of the 70s here, that's for sure. So let's talk a little bit about this next guy. There's no doubt about his greatness, probably the greatest Thom of all time, certainly the greatest Thom of the 70s. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about the Thoms in baseball in the 70s. Not a lot going on there. The pitcher that appeared in most games in the 1970s named Thom was Tom Bergmeyer, 458 games. Home run leader for the 1970 Toms was Tom Grieve, 65 home runs, which ranks 148th out of all players that played in that decade. And also, he's your hit leader with 474 hits, which is 175 ranking in hits of the 70s. Now, your RBI leader was Tommy Harper, 323 RBIs. He ranks 138th in the 1970s. So where are we going with this, you say? And I'm saying, hold on here, put another quarter in the Wikipedia machine, because we're going to read about a guy named George Thomas Seaver, who was born in 1944 on November the 17th, nearly a Thanksgiving baby, and passed away, sadly, August 31st, 2020. He was nicknamed Tom Terrific or the franchise, of course. Played 20 seasons in the major leagues. He played for the Mets, the Reds, the White Sox, and briefly for the Red Sox. Commonly described as the most iconic player in Mets history, Seaver played a significant role in their victory in the 1969 World Series over the Baltimore Orioles. It says here that with the Mets, Seaver won the National League's Rookie of the Year award in '67, won 3 NL Cy Young awards as the league's best pitcher. He was a 12-time All-Star and ranks as the Mets' all-time leader in wins. During his MLB career, he compiled 311 wins, 3,640 strikeouts, 61 shutouts, and a 2.86 ERA. Now, Thom Seaver in the 70s had 178 victories from 1970 to 1979, which ranks third in that time period. 2,304 strikeouts, which ranks second. 40 shutouts, which ranks third, and 2.61 ERA, good enough for sixth. The 70s was loaded with pitchers that played the entire decade. Think about our guys like Hall of Famers Don Sutton and Gaylord Perry and Phil Niekro, Steve from Mars, Carlton, and of course Nolan Ryan and Jim Palmer. So this guy, out of all those, was probably the best pitcher out of all of them in that 10-year span. Certainly, if you include the couple of years prior to the 1970. He was drafted by the LA Dodgers in the 10th round of the 65 MLB June amateur draft out of USC, where he was a roommate with Bill Spaceman Lee. He was also drafted in the first round, 20th overall, by the Atlanta Braves in the MLB January draft out of the same University of Southern California. Now, he was going to sign with, or he did sign, I believe, with the Braves, but then his contract was nullified because it had shown that he had pitched 2 games as a professional in some far, far off place. So he's one of 2 New York Mets depicted on their Hall of Fame plaques. Mike Piazza is the other one. I believe Mike Piazza should have been a Dodger, but that's me. He wore number 41 throughout his career, that Tom Terrific did. Again, Hall of Famer, again, 3-time Cy Young Award winner, again, 12-time All-Star, 3-time ERA title winner, Rookie of the Year, 1969 World Series champion. And let's see here. What you probably didn't know about Thom Seaver is over the course of his career, he hit 12 home runs, batted a measly 154, but good for poking that ball over the fence. 3 home runs for the Reds in '77, 3 home runs for the Mets in '72. So Thom Seaver could hurt you on either side of the 60-foot, 6-inch imaginary line. You want to talk about some baseball cards? Let's talk about some baseball cards. Now, old Thom over here, appeared in, let's see here, 23, 24, almost 30 cards from Topps alone now in the 1970s. Of course, he appeared on everything else as well, from stamps to scratch-offs to Kellogg's cards and discs and all that stuff. So Beckett OPG says that Thom had 6,008 baseball cards produced, and obviously they're still putting them out there as well. So 6,008. If you are a Thom Seaver super collector, I wish you luck. And yeah, that's about all I could say for that. I own exactly 165 Thom Seaver baseball cards. I do not have the rookie card, 1967. Excuse me. I have, actually, my most recent Thom Seaver purchase was the 1968 Topps rookie trophy card that I got out at Burbank Sports Cards a few weeks back. Let's talk about Topps cards in the 1970s, shall we? So Thom comes out of the bang here at the decade. He has his regular issue card. He has a horizontal World Series card, and he has a pitching leaders card, and he's depicted on that pitching leaders card with fellow Hall of Famers Phil Niekro, Fergie Jenkins, and Juan Marichal. So that's 3 cards in 1970. 71 would also give us 3 cards with his standard issue card throwing out there in right field at Shea Stadium. Then he's in the strikeout leaders card and the ERA leaders card. Strikeout leaders card with a great Bob Gibson and Fergie Jenkins. And just to show you how crazy those leaders cards were back in the day, the 60s and the 70s, his ERA card depicts him with Wayne Simpson and Luke Walker. Interesting, huh? 72, he would go full on crazy. Has 6 cards in the 72 set, and this does not include any of the team sets, team pictures as well. So he's got a standard issue 72 card, and Thom has been awarded a starter jacket. It looks like he's down there in spring training with his jacket on. 72 in action card. Who knows what Thom Seaver's doing? Looks like he's got an old-fashioned glove on his left hand with the big fingers and all that stuff, and he is either bending over in pain, perhaps a ligament, muscle, or intestinal issue, but he is definitely gesticulating in a form that I just can't put my finger on. And then we move on to his boyhood photos of the Stars card. Shows him as a young buck in his full Little League wool uniform. And, of course, a picture of him modern day, again, in that starter jacket or whatever they called them back then, bottom right. Then he's on a bunch of the leaders cards, the NL strikeout leaders card. Thom's depicted with Fergie Jenkins and Bill Stoneman. The NL pitching leaders, which is the victory leader card, is a rare 4-way player leader card. And it's got Fergie Jenkins, Steve from Mars Carlton, Al Downing, and Thom Seaver depicted on that 4-player card. Al Downing may look like he doesn't belong there, but of course he's the guy who surrendered the historic 714th home run to Henry Louis Aaron. And the NL ERA leaders from 1971, we have Thom Seaver, Dave Roberts, and the tragic Don Wilson. So 72, of course, probably the most bloated set in history. And this is one of the reasons why when we have the inaction and the boyhood photos and all that stuff, can't blame Thom Seaver for being on the leaders cards. He earned that, but the other cards, of course, Topps in 72, 71, Thurman Munson is widely known as having the first action card in Topps and base player card, I should say. And 72, of course, was capitalizing on that with these inaction cards. They wanted to show you that they could take pictures in real time of players doing baseball player things. Moving on to 73. 73, Thom tones it down a little bit with his another spring training card. Now, Thom Seaver was not known as a smiler in his cards. He was known as, from what I gather, a very nice guy, and I'm not sure anybody had anything bad to say about Thom Seaver, except for the Mets general manager back in the day. But Thom was kind of a dour guy on his cards, but he kind of breaks out here a little bit in 73, almost like a Yaz, almost like a Yaz smile there. 74 is a wonderful horizontal inaction shot of Thom Seaver throwing the ball at the batter, the catcher, and the umpire. First base is ready to receive, and looks like a full crowd there at Shea Stadium. Of course, the Mets were pretty darn good around that time, having gone to the World Series in 1973 when that picture was probably taken during that season. Earned run leaders, Jim Palmer and Thom Seaver. Thom is smiling. He's thrilled, happy, all that jazz. And then the 73 strikeout leaders has Nolan Ryan and Thom Seaver depicted. I love these leader cards. And, of course, this card particular is the first time we see Ryan and Seaver on a leaders card together. 75 card is Thom around the batting cage, probably mocking his teammates. His facsimile autograph is dangerously close to exiting the card in the upper right-hand side. And nice little photo there depicting the back in the day hilarity of pitchers watching hitters take batting practice. Moving on there to the 1976 season, Thom goes full 5-way on us here. Again, back to spring training with his base card. Love the 76 set. And then Thom also has a record breaker card, 8 consecutive 200 or more strikeout seasons, which was a record for baseball players at that time. And then he is on 3 leader cards again with victory leaders. He led the league with 22 wins. Randy Jones, 20 wins, and Andy Messersmith, 19 wins. Earned run average, he is third to Randy Jones, Messersmith, and it's interesting that those 3 guys ended up on the same cards, 2 different cards for victories and earned run. And then he was our strikeout leader with 243 strikeout. Andy Messersmith is there again, but the Count of Montefusco is our meat in that sandwich with 215 strikeouts. So, that's 1976. Let's move on to closing out the 70s there with old Thom Terrific. Nice shot, 77, pitching be his last card depicted as a Met. Tom Seaver is mouth agape, throwing the ball. Looks like the field is void of fielders. He's out there alone. Don't see anybody in the crowd, which is different for an action shot. Just seeing a man out there alone. Tom Seaver's right knee is battered with dirt, and we know Tom Seaver liked to drag that whole leg when he did his man spread towards home plate, and it worked for him. Very famous for that long stride in his full windup. 76 strikeout leaders were in the AL, Nolan Ryan and Tom Seaver. So on the 77 card, you can get it's a 2-figure card for sure, the 76 strikeout leaders, because of Nolan Ryan and Tom Seaver. Again, sharing an inside joke with the photographer. Something is funny. We don't know. We'll never know. Tom Seaver in 1978 was depicted as a Reds pitcher, classic 78 style card there. Tom doesn't look too happy to be a Reds pitcher. I'm not sure where he is. Perhaps spring training. Perhaps he's at Shea Stadium almost. It looks like he's got his poly knit pullover Cincinnati Reds jersey on, his red cap, and his Rawlings glove with the finger popping out of the finger hole. And 1979, Tom is again in that same uniform, the road Reds uniform, and he is throwing the ball. From behind, we see Tom, full glute action. I want to say he's in his, perhaps there's runners on base here, because I want to say he is in his, he's in his stretch right there. And anyway, he's throwing the ball towards home plate, fully comfortable as a Reds pitcher at this time. So that's that. That's 3 Toms and a turkey. So Turkey Stearns, Tom Dempsey, Tom Keating, no relation, we think, and Tom Seaver of the 1970s. Turkey, Tom, tryptophan, all that stuff. You guys and gals, please enjoy yourself this Thanksgiving. It's football Thursday, as we know. It really is a wonderful time of year, whether even for collectors, because we have football going, basketball, hockey. The World Cup has gripped the world, I believe, except for me. I'm going to wait for the next rounds, even though I'm a big-time supposed European soccer head. I'll probably dive deeper into that as they get into the elimination rounds. But anyway, friends, family, all that stuff. Enjoy that. Wonderful time to collect. Be careful overspending on Black Friday, because obviously there's going to be a lot of deals out there, especially in the baseball card world. And you never know. Hopefully we all get deals, but don't, as they say, bet with your head, not with your heart. So just be careful out there on how much you spend, all that nonsense. As they said there, when Black Friday comes, I'll collect everything I'm owed. And before my friends find out, I'll be on the road. So that's from Steely Dan from Black Friday. Enjoy everything you have coming to you this weekend and this holiday season. Be safe. Do not drink or drive. Do not drink and eBay And beware of the drunk uncles, and treat your your stoned cousins cautiously, because you never know what they're going to have to offer to you. But the drunk uncles, we know what their motives are. So thanks for joining me this week on my journey back in time. If you have a comment or suggestion, or perhaps you have a drunk uncle you would like to report to the drunk uncle hotline, reach out to me at ThatSeventiesCardShow at gmail.com. That's 70s Card Show on YouTube, or 70s Card on Twitter, for as long as that is going to last, which I think it's going to last a long time. So music on the podcast is by Mango Safari. I urge everyone, boys, girls, men and women, and non-binary identifiers, please enjoy your collecting, and more importantly, enjoy your collection.